Okay, welcome to a financial planning podcast with a down-to-earth vibe. Sasquatch listens to us during his morning jog. Most people don't know that, but it's true. This is Through the Pines. On this episode, we cover budgeting. It's really hard to stick to a budget, so we brought in some professionals to talk about this. Let's bring in planwithbaxter.com financial planners Rex Baxter, Brandon Smith, and Dan Nelson. Before we get started, I want to say that we do have a Facebook page. You can like that. It is Through the Pines, and also an Instagram that I just started yesterday. So jump on that at Pines_podcast and give us a follow, and I'll try and update that at least once a week because, you know, it's always fun sticking with the socials. But budgets are hard, and they're hard to stick to. We talked about this backstage briefly right before we went on that. And I'm wondering, Rex, why did you say that? Why are budgets so hard to stick to? Because life happens. Is that as simple as that?
Life happens.
Yeah.
It is as simple as that.
Right.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Yep. And we're done.
Yep, life happens.
Yeah.
So I think budgeting is so hard because there's something different every month, right? That you just can't plan for.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's birthdays or Christmas or a holiday. Sometimes it's, you know, a tire goes flat, and so you have an auto repair or a central air unit or something like that, or you know, your wife sees a Facebook ad to go see New Kids on the Block.
Well, that sets you back thousands. So just so you know,
I mean, yeah. So there's all kinds of things that can just blow a budget up, and so budgets are tough.
Okay, so what is a budget? What is a budget, and why? What's the purpose of one? Why should we just have one in general?
So in general, you want to be in control of your money, right? You don't want your money to control you. And so the purpose of a budget is so that every dollar has a purpose, so that you know how much you should be, you know, spending on your bills, you know, how much you should be saving into, you know, different kinds of investment accounts, retirement accounts, how much you're giving away, keep things in check on kind of spending on food and eating out and different things like that. And so it's so that it's very empowering to be in control of your money and know where your money is being spent. And instead of it controlling you and hoping that, you know, that check that you just wrote or that debit purchase that you just made isn't going to bounce and incur a bunch of fees. Sure. Because you're not budgeting and you don't know where everything's going.
Yeah, that's stressful in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Should mention, if you're watching live, you can go ahead. If you have a question, you want to participate, a comment, you can just put the comment in the comments and we'll see it. And if it's got a question, put it in the comments and we'll try and answer it in real time for you. So, that's why we do the live show. So if you do have questions for financial planners in real time, we can answer those. All right. So, I don't have a budget, and I come to a financial professional like yourself, and I say, I have no idea what I should do. What's the best or the most common way to split savings, spending versus retirement and investments? Like, is this percentage based? Brandon, you want to jump in?
I'll take this.
Yeah, this is all over it.
All day long, I'll take this one.
All right.
So I've been doing this financial planning thing for years. And when I started out, I literally used to, when I did financial planning, I mean, this was, you know, a decade ago, I would say, so how much do you want to retire on? And nobody was like, what's your answer to that? I don't know. Like enough, you know, more. Yeah. And nobody could come up with the numbers. So I went to budgets, right? I went to Excel spreadsheets. I went to PDFs with like fill in the blanks. How much do you spend on cell phone bill? But without fail, it leaves out tires. It leaves out birthdays. It leaves out Christmas. It leaves out the parts of the house breaking down, right? It's just so hard to come across. And so what I've come to is I will take your income and I'll figure out what type of income it is, right? What type of taxes that incurs. I'll calculate how much you're saving towards retirement and towards other goals. I'll calculate how much you're paying towards debt payments like homes and other things that change. And essentially, due to my lack of trust in budgets and people's ability to tell me how much they actually spend, I will back into that and I'll show you exactly, right? If this is what you make, this is what you're saving, this is what you're paying your house off with, and here's what your taxes are. Everything else is getting spent. You know, and I can take that number, divide it by 12, figure out what you're spending on average each year per month, and we can break it out that way. Then we have a number.
Yeah.
And then from there, I've found the budgets just don't work long term. And there are a few people. I've met a few people who can make a budget work long term. But
this episode is called "How to Stick to a Budget." So
right, most people doesn't work. And so the secret to it.
Okay, yeah. What is this? That's what we all want to know. What's the secret
to make? And this is my form of a budget, right? And you can thrash it and tell me it's not a real budget all you want. But at the end of the day, with a financial plan, I can determine what you need to do to become successful. And so I can say, we need to save X amount percentage into your 401k. And then we need to increase that by this, or we just need to keep that the same. And we can split out the important pieces that are automatic. And that is, if you take one thing from me, this entire podcast, that is it. Figure out what is important and make it automatic. And then let the rest of it just fall into place. And obviously you can build up savings and stuff that way. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to figure out what's important and make it automatic and let the rest of the life just kind of play out.
Figure out what's important and the rest is automatic. So Rex, Disneyland's important. You that, the rest is automatic. I guess, apparently. I'm coming to you because you like debt. You love debt, I think. How do you budget debt in? People listen to popular radio show hosts, out there. It says, this is how you pay off your debt. What's your advice on how to pay off debt, and how much of the debt paying off should be a part of the budget versus how much should you invest? And then, do you get into the percentages where it's like, I could make more money if I put it in the market. Screw my debt. How deep do you get on that stuff?
So I think everybody's different that way. I think that as far as debt and debt payments go, there's two popular philosophies on paying off debt. And so typically when you're saying paying off debt, you're talking about variable interest rate debt like credit card debt or car debt, or even house debt, I guess, as far as that's concerned. And one popular way that's commonly referred to as kind of snowballing your debt is you put all of your debts in order from largest debt to smallest debt. You're making minimum payments on everything except for that smallest debt. And you're just plowing as much towards that smallest debt as you can to get it paid off. So let's say that the smallest debt has a $100 minimum payment. You're plowing $200 at it to get it paid off faster. It gets paid off. Well, now you've got $200 that you can roll up to that next debt. And so the next debt, let's say that its minimum payment is $150. Well, now you're paying the $150 plus another $200. Now you're paying $350 every month towards that debt. And then you snowball it up and so forth and until you get out of debt. And so the reason that that's such a popular method is because you get more emotional wins early by getting those small debts paid off. And so those emotional wins keep you motivated and keep you going because you can see progress quicker. And that's why from an emotional standpoint, that tends to work very, very well. From a financial standpoint, we line them up by interest rates. From the lowest interest rate at the top to the highest interest rate at the bottom. And we're throwing the most amount of money at the highest interest rate to get the highest interest rate paid off first. And financially, that is a better way to go because we're getting the highest interest rate paid off quickest and thus paying least amount in interest over time.
Interesting.
And so, but that's not as emotionally as rewarding as the other.
Well, it could be for the right mindset. If someone wants to see those numbers and they know that they're saving money, that person it might work for. But yeah, I get why the snowball works much better.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the two different methodologies, I guess, out there.
Okay.
And then you had another part of your question. What
I did?
Maybe you don't remember. Yeah, but that's okay.
No, I did. Yeah, I don't know.
If anybody in the audience remembers the second part of
the second part of the question,
feel free to throw it back in.
Dan, what in a budget? How do you stick to a budget, and then also how do you include purchases? Like you have a big purchase coming up, a home, a car, a vacation. How do you do that?
Let's talk about it for a minute. So here's an old school way of thinking about budgets. It's really interesting whenever a couple comes together and they determine on their own that they've got some financial issues. They've got some financial problems. And they need to sort some things out. Just like anybody who's ever tried to lose weight in their life, one way that they can do that is by keeping a food diary. Okay. They can actually write down everything that they eat and how much exercise they do every day. You can do the same kind of a thing if you just take a typical month and just say, okay, I'm going to keep track, just in a little notebook, old school, on a piece of paper, how much I spend every day. And then I'm going to add that up at the end of the week and the end of the month. And then I might do that, wait a month, and then do it again a month, 2 months later, and then see how they compare. I think it's really interesting how people could look at a budget and say, I don't want to live this way my whole life, but I do want to know how much I'm spending on a monthly basis. That's a great way to do it because you get a real good feel for, wow, I'm out of control or I'm actually doing okay. And by just keeping track of your daily spends once in a while to get you back in line to where you want to be.
Yeah.
I've seen that be successful.
And then Dan, where does your budget live? I think Brandon mentioned he has like a program, but have you seen it work better if people have it in a notebook or if they have it in an Excel sheet or, like where do people put budgets?
Well, there's probably 1,000 ways you could do that.
Yeah.
It really is. And those that are really into technology, there's all kinds of apps and opportunities on a computer to be able to do that. Those that are older and that might be in a second or a third marriage, or maybe they're living on their own. I have a good friend that just lost his wife, and a month or so ago to COVID, actually, even this late. And we were sitting down and we were talking about budgeting. We were talking about how much does it cost him to live every month, and we talked about a pretty simple look at his life. And basically his income is his Social Security. And we talked about that and came up with an idea about how he can keep track of that on a daily basis. And he chose to just do it like I just described, with just a notebook. And it's been going for a month or so. I'll ask him to take a month or two off and then do it again in the fall. And then we'll come back together and we'll just talk about it. He's just a friend of mine. I've known him for probably 60 years. And that's just one way to look at it.
Yeah. Rex, okay, so let's see. Let's move you onto the big screen there. Yeah. All right. So we talked about life events, right? Lost job. I wrote a couple down, like car repairs, divorce, medical. Now, when I see you as a financial planner, aren't you going to tell me to have an emergency fund? And shouldn't that cover the life events? Like, how does that affect the budget?
Yeah, so I am going to suggest that you have an emergency fund. Yes.
Okay.
So, but it's tricky, right? Because normally we want 3 to 6 months of your spending in an emergency fund. But if we have a ton of credit card debt that you're paying, 15, 18, 24% on, and you're earning zero on your 6 months of emergency fund, then lots of times while we're getting that debt paid off, as long as it's truly getting paid off, then lots of times we may bring down that emergency fund down to 1 month of spending and put the rest of it towards that debt to get it paid off faster. And then once it gets paid off, then we'll build the emergency fund back up. Normally what we do in addition to that on the emergency fund to cover life events, right? Car breaks down, medical expenses, any of those things, is that's exactly what an emergency fund is for. Right, is to cover those emergencies so that you're not having to miss work or you're not having to go into debt for those kinds of life events. And so essentially you spend down your emergency fund. Let's say you have, 20 grand in your emergency fund and your car dies and you have to go out and buy, a used car that you can afford for 15 grand. We're going to have you take that out of the emergency fund and take your emergency fund down to 5 grand. But then for the next year, instead of making car payments, you're making payments into that emergency fund every month to build it back up to the 20 grand before we do, anything extreme as far as, and frivolous, such as vacations or things like that. We want that emergency fund built back up. Once it's built back up, then we're back on the train track, and we're back going to have fun. But that's part of being an adult, right? Is being in control of your money and
Yeah.
and making sure that you're managing it and it's not managing you.
Yeah. Well, not always easy, and we're lazy. And so how many times has someone come to you as you're their financial advisor and said, yeah, I can't put money in my investments right now, Rex, because I just blew it all. I fell off the track. I don't have the money. That's not, and I think Dan mentioned it like a diet. Like, I really see this like diets. If you go too hard, you can't sustain it. You know what I mean? If you're too tight with the money, you can't sustain it. And then now I can't put money towards my investments in retirement. Rex?
Yeah, that happens a lot, right? And it's like the diet. You go hard and you burn yourself out after 3 months or a month or 30 days, and then you rack up more pounds or more debt in this situation than even what you had before, because it's not sustainable. And so there does have to be some equilibrium in there. I think there's a lot of strategies to that, whether it's, if Dan talks about old school, the other old school method is the envelope system, right? To where you go and you start using envelopes, and this envelope pays this bill and that envelope pays that bill, and this envelope's for eating out. And when the envelope's empty, the envelope's empty.
Yeah.
Well,
we have some hacks coming up later. We'll talk about all those hacks here later, but let's see, let's bring you in, Dan. What do you say? We talked about this we have another podcast we just did. It's a marriage podcast. So what I want to know is, you have a budget and you're sticking to it, and then a spouse falls off the budget. And so, Dan, how do you handle that part of it? And by the way, you should listen to the marriage podcast too. That one's a good one.
Yeah. Communication. Again, It's all about communication, especially with money. Make sure that you're communicating, find out what the need is or what the want is. And I think it's really important for people to distinguish the difference between wants and needs. Too often we want a lot of things, but we might only need a few things. And so that I think has got to be part of a conversation when it comes to money. Is what are my wants and what are my needs? And my needs are different than my wife's needs, and so are my wants. And so you've got to communicate about that as a couple, and that always helps in that situation.
Rex, have you seen people overcome that?
Yeah, I think you have to pick your hard, right? I mean, it's hard to communicate.
Rex is full of good quotes today. Pick your hard. Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's popular all over the place right now, right? Yeah. But it's hard to communicate. It's hard to talk about budgeting. It's hard to talk about money. It's hard to talk about needs and wants and emergency funds and all those things. But you know what else is hard? Divorce. Divorce is hard. And you don't want to go through that.
And it's expensive.
And it's expensive.
Yeah.
Right? And emotionally taxing. And I mean, it beats you up in every way it can beat you up. And so pick your hard. Which way do you want to go? It's just like dieting, right?
Yeah.
Being fat is hard. And being overweight is hard, and exercising and eating right, that's hard.
Yeah.
Which hard do you want? And so pick your hard, right?
Man, you're bringing it today, Rex. I appreciate that. All right, so we've determined that there are factors that could derail budgets, life events, car repairs, divorce, medical, laziness, just not putting in the effort to stick to the budget that you put down, lack of self-discipline, greed. Maybe you just saw the car of your dreams and you broke the budget and you bought the car of your dreams. Maybe you don't have support from your spouse. So we want to talk about how to get back on track. But before we do that, Brandon, SMORE numbers. You knew it. I'm coming to you, man. What you got? Yeah.
So this one's appropriate. Payments.com or PYMNTS.com came out with a fact. And I'm not sure how they got this, but I believe it. It says 36% of U.S. households making at least $250,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck.
That's so much money. And yet,
I've seen more extreme examples making more than double that and still living paycheck to paycheck.
You blame that on not having a budget, or not communicating in a marriage, like Dan would say.
I think it's different for everyone, but I do what I have found is that it is unbelievably easy to get used to more money being spent.
Yeah.
Like that number almost never stops. And so I think, not to circle back around to a previous point, but I think you just have to make sure that you get in place the important things. Because I also know I've seen countless times where people are making north of $250,000 a year and living budget to budget, but they've at least said, but we're going to max fund our 401ks, and we're going to do this and this, and we're going to save this. Yes, we're month to month. Yes, if something bad happens, we're scrambling until we can get to our next paycheck. But as long as they're doing those important, big, key things of saving for retirement and making sure that those other pieces are in place, they can usually get through it in the short run. Obviously, they're paying more in credit card interest. They're paying more. It's not the most efficient way to do it, but as long as you get the big pieces in place, it can work out.
Yeah, interesting. Dan, so if someone comes to you and says, listen, I got to put a pause on my retirement, my investments. I fell off track with my budget. What's your advice to them? How do you get them reset and back on a budget and back to investing in their retirement? And why is it important to get back on track?
Well, it's important because your lifetime goal is to get through your earning years and get to retirement where you can still keep the same lifestyle and not have to drastically change your lifestyle because you don't have a paycheck anymore. So you want to be able to have enough savings and earnings to be able to replace that normal paycheck you get with where you pay yourself on a monthly basis in retirement. So what you do is you sit down and you say, okay, well, let's talk about what happened. And as you talk about what happened, there could be some issues that led up to it. But normally people, if they will come clean and talk about that, they already pretty well know what they need to do. And so we maybe put it on pause for a couple of months, and then we start and we fix that problem, and then we start over again. The key is to just start over again. Mm-hmm. The key is to make sure you're doing it on a consistent basis over a period of a lot of years. The other thing is, don't wait till you're 55 or 60 years old to start saving for retirement. It's so important to start saving when you're in your 20s and 30s, and get your lifestyle used to having so much, maybe 10% going towards savings on a monthly basis. If you're saving or paying yourself first, that 10%, and you do that consistently throughout your life, you won't get to 60 or 63 years old and not have any money.
Yeah. Again, those of you watching live, if you have questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the comment box there, and we can address those in real time. Rex, we fell off the wagon. We can't get back on. What do you tell clients when, they're no longer putting money towards their retirement, and then how does calling a financial planner help? I mean, because most people, when they're stressed about money and stuff, I think it's embarrassing. They don't want to call their financial planner and say, "Hey, I don't have any money. I'm out of money now. I can't invest." Like, how often do you have to chase them down, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think you can't lead a horse to water, right? You can't make it drink. You can't do any of those things. And so if somebody's not doing it on their own, they can pay as many financial planners as they want. It's not going to change your life, right? You have to be motivated to do it on your own. We can certainly show you, tricks and tips and hacks and different ways to do it that might fit your personality. It might help and things like that. And so, sometimes we'll have a client and they'll have their, one of their kids that may be struggling with that we sit down and meet with, and we kind of start with basic goals, right? And we say, okay, in the next, 30 days, I really want to see you here. And then in the next 60 days, we really want to see you here. And we just kind of build on it methodically to try and build those habits that somehow they missed in life, to get them in place and to get them back on the wagon. But I will say that, time and time again, my experience has shown me that the habits that you build during your teenage years and 20s stay with you throughout your life. And it's very difficult to change those habits that are in place. And so if you're in your 20s and you're just, getting out of college and starting a career, or or you're just finally getting out of kind of those, temporary jobs into a career, that is the time to like Dan said, to get your spending in check, to live on 50% of your paycheck and make sure that you're saving and giving and doing all the other things first. And that's like Brandon said, that those have been automated and out of sight, out of mind first before you ever see your paycheck in your checking account. And if you do that, and then that habit will stay with you throughout your entire life. But if you're 40 or 50, not to say that you can't change and you can't make a change. There's a great book out there called Atomic Habits. That's a great read for anybody that wants to go and read it. But it talks about how to install habits at any point in your life. And I think it can be done, but boy, it takes a lot of motivation and a lot of consistency to do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that yourself, we can't magically impart that to you, right? We can try and help motivate you and help.
Rex, what are we paying for? What? Come on now.
So, it's the looks. You're pretty much paying for the looks.
All right. So how do you get back? How to get back on track? Don't panic. If you have a professional, contact your professional. If you don't, contact. I think we called it dreamwithbaxter.com, but no. Plan with Baxter. Planwithbaxter.com. Set goals with Baxter.com. Whatever you want to change those URLs to, Rex, go for it. But it is planwithbaxter.com.
I think we're going to stay with planwithbaxter.com.
And then reset those goals, because it's okay, right? Like, it's okay to start over. Like, you just
it's okay to start over, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing you don't want to do is give up.
Yeah.
Right. And just throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, heck, I cannot do it. This is not in my wheelhouse. It is in your wheelhouse. You just have to find your way to do it as far as what's going to make sense for you and your personality type.
Okay.
But you need, sorry,
go
keep
ahead,
going.
Brandon.
I was just going to say, but you need to know yourself, because I can't tell you how many times I've met with people, over and over in enrollment meetings at their 401k enrollments. And, hey, we're going to sign up this year? You know what? This has been a crazy year. Money's tight. Let's do it next year. And that year, it never comes, right? And so if you find yourself in that realm where you're never gonna, it just makes so much sense to just know yourself, get signed up, right? Obviously, like Rick said, having an emergency fund fully funded 3 to 6 months and then start investing, that makes all the sense in the world. But if you're never, sometimes it makes sense to just get started, because you're never gonna, money's never gonna be magically there. Yeah. And so I think that's important.
Yeah. I want to talk hacks, and those of you watching or listening to this podcast, leave a comment about what is your hack? What is your hack on how you stick to a budget? Maybe we can learn something from you. Something I looked up, I think I Googled like craziest budget hacks or something like that. I found a blog, inspiredbudget.com, and they had a few. It's a real blog. They probably make a living doing it. So a couple of the hacks. Now tell me your feedback on some of these, like freezing money. Rex, you said you've seen that, right? Like people actually freeze money.
I have seen that. Yep. Ziploc baggies.
Ziploc bags in the freezer. And then another one was like buy your groceries online. In other words, if you don't have to go to the store, you don't pick up random stuff. You shop online. Have a shopping list if you do go to the store, and also use meal plans. And then the envelopes. I'm unfamiliar with the envelopes. Can someone please explain the envelope system to me?
Well, Rex, I can talk a little bit about it and then chime in. The main thing about the envelopes is you set them out and you say, okay, I know I've got to pay Rocky Mountain Power every month. So this is the money for Rocky Mountain Power. You put the money, you cash the check, your paycheck, you put the money in for that utility bill. You put the money in for the city utility bill. You put the money in another envelope for your savings. In other words, I'm going to pay myself 10%. And so there's the 10% there. I'm going to donate some money. So there's that money there. So you put those envelopes out there, and when the money, and you might have a fun one where you say, this is for restaurants or for going out to eat. And that's the money that I've set aside every month for that. And when that envelope is empty, you're done going out to eat for that month or that paycheck period. So it's just a system that people use like any other system, where sometimes it works for them to be able to help themselves budget.
Okay.
So
I would totally
Brandon,
steal
I've
from
seen it
other
done-
envelopes, though. I could not be trusted.
so I've seen it done two ways. Like when I was young, my parents would actually have one of those old school Rolodexes, right? And it would actually have the days of the month. So instead of ABCD, it would have 1, 2, 3, through 30. And they literally, my dad would go cash his check and he'd say, okay, the house payment. And obviously we're talking a little while ago, house payments, $87. Food is 40 and
$87. How long was this ago? Oh my goodness. $87.
Well, I mean, we still used our feet underneath the car to pedal, right?
Yeah,
And so,
okay.
so but then he would put the envelope on the day that it's due, right? And so it's due on the 5th. And so on the 5th, he would say, okay, well, this is what envelopes are in there, and he'd take the cash and go pay it. And so the more modern way that I've seen people do that is there's different online, bank accounts and bank financial institutions that'll kind of let you open up and nickname as many accounts as you want. And so what the more modern way is you have your check direct deposited into a checking account, and on that same day you have automated that so much money comes out of that checking account and goes into savings 1, savings 2, savings 3, savings 4. And 1 is your house payment, and 2 is your utility bill, and 3 is your car payment, and so forth on down the line.
That's crazy. Do you remember the name of any of those apps or banks?
So I know some people use like a Capital One 360 account. Some people use Ally Financial. Some people use, I mean, there's a bunch of them that are out there.
Okay.
As far as that goes. And so, they would essentially do that. And then as that bill comes due, they just go online and they move money from that savings over to the checking to cover the bill. Yeah. And then they've got a little buffer of $5 or $25 as the baseline in each of those little savings accounts.
That's Brandon's hack with the automated,
Yeah. So it's automated to come out of the checking, so it doesn't get in that, spent, and then it's a physical, movement of money back in to cover the bill as it hits.
Rex, what's your dog's name?
Oh, can you hear that? Yeah. That's Jetty. She's a little upset.
How do you budget for puppies, man? I tell you what, they can take some money from you if you're not careful.
They're tough. Puppies are tough, to budget for, because every now and then they've got vet bills and different things like that. And so, but we actually do that. We actually have a line item for pets, and we'll go months without chewing it down, so to say.
Right.
And then all of a sudden something will hit. And I know. Where's that drum set, Brandon?
Well, it's behind. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's really behind. I have to. Yeah. Oh boy, it's really, really behind. Oh my gosh. Man. Okay. Yeah. Really behind.
There we
go. It's like the slowest ever, but it's there. Okay. Yeah.
First time that's ever happened to me, Brandon. Thank you.
Oh, good. Is it really? Well.
Yeah.
Okay. It should happen. Should have happened earlier. I should go to Rex with this, but pay debt first. I have this as a budget hack. Why is that a budget hack?
Well, it just makes sense, right? That if you have debt, and again, it's the same thing we had talked about before. And if you're paying 10% or 15 or 24% or whatever, that's your most expensive thing that we need to pay down first.
Okay.
And so that's why obviously you need food and shelter, right? And transportation to get to and from work. So those 3 things come first. Mm-hmm. Once we're done with those 3 things, then debt is right there. Okay. And debt comes next. Okay. So
a couple others are like a mini budget, or I would call it a sub budget. So maybe Brandon, you've seen this because you like to automate stuff. Have you seen anything where it's like, okay, I went over budget last month, but I got this little mini budget that will help me get back on track? Like, have you seen anything like that?
No. I mean, I'm sure
it's
people.
A pro tip.
I'm sure people do. I'm sure it's out there, but I haven't seen it.
All right. Remove credit card information from online shopping sites. Let items sit in your cart for 24 hours online before you buy them. So I actually let them sit for like weeks.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm pro at like opening carts, and it's actually pretty brilliant. The sites that don't have carts, you're missing out, because I love building carts. I build carts and like, oh man, I want to buy all this stuff. And then I like never buy it. Yeah. Cause I'm never like, I don't want to pull the trigger right now. Yeah.
I'm the
My
opposite.
wife hates when I do that.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Cause she's like, cause then I'll be like, oh, that was like 3 remote control airplanes. Like, you know, like I'm comparing everything to whatever it is in my cart.
Well, it's how we do gifts and stuff. So it's like I have an Amazon cart, I have a Sweetwater cart, I have like a B&H photo cart. And so she can log in and look at the carts and be like, what do I want to buy for Christmas and birthday and stuff, and just buy from the cart. It's pretty nice, actually.
So this is where communication is key, right? Because I learned very quickly. I put a couple of things in a cart that I was just kind of thinking about, right? Contemplating.
Yeah.
And my wife needed a shirt or something like that. So she put a shirt in the cart. She brought the whole dang cart.
She brought the whole cart.
Next thing I know, all the things
I
was
love
looking
it.
at showed up.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you put it in the cart. If you put it in the cart, you must want it and need it. And so I just bought the cart.
Oh
so
my
I
gosh.
never put anything in the cart anymore. So
you
That's
can
funny.
save it for later, you know, just
Yeah, do it as a save for later. Side hustles. So when should someone, Rex, make more money instead of save more money? Because I'm pro make more money instead, and then you got more to spend.
Yeah, I'm pro make more money too. Typically, I think even though you'll continue to spend whatever you make, and I think that's a truism that Brandon had mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times it is an income issue, and I think that a lot of people need that extra income, that side hustle. Whether it's some people going out and driving Uber, or some people doing DoorDash and driving for delivery, or even making deliveries for the post office these days. There's a lot of side hustles that could be had. There's, or you can start up your own little business, right? And do it that way. I think the things that you need to be worried about is when your side hustle costs you more than what it makes. And so you need to be careful of that. That's called a hobby, not a side hustle.
Okay.
But I think side hustles are great. I think a lot of people have as much of an income issue as they do a spending issue.
I think I've had a hobby for years.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Here's one. It's I don't know about this. I think it's a good idea, but also it could go bad. So a no spend month challenge. And this would be like someone who say drinks a lot of alcohol, and they do like dry November. I don't know. There's some popular months for it. Dry January, I think, is one of the popular months to just not drink that January. So like no spend, like you don't spend anything frivolously for a month. I could totally see that going wrong the next month where you just buy all the things. But have you guys had any experience with any of your clients doing a no spend month?
my wife does it all the time.
Does she
She's
really?
Like, all right, that's it. We're not spending any money. I'm like, oh,
Here we
man.
go again.
Or
Oh,
she's like, we're going
feel bad for you,
vegetarian. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no. You know?
okay. So it's
Ours-
out there. It's a hack. But do you spend more?
Ours is more of a where I see clients doing it is sometimes when clients are looking at, sometimes clients will have their kids come in and talk to us and they're young and newly married and things like that. And they'll talk to us about buying a house. And so I'll say, well, before you go buy the house, the house payment's going to be $1,500. Your escrow is going to be another $300. Your utilities are going to be another, $300. And then you probably have some odd and end, repairs that are going to have to happen on a month for another $250. So let's call it $2,300. So for the next 2 months, why don't you just shift $2,200 into this other account and see what life feels like for a month or two or three.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And see if you're going to be so house poor that life is miserable, as opposed to getting so excited about being a homeowner that then you end up in a ton of debt and sacrificing a ton of life goals.
Well, you just can't go do fun things. You have a nice house, but you're stuck
Yeah.
at home because you can't go on vacation. You can't do the things. Yeah. So, oh boy, that's really hard. That's a hard exercise, Rex. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Okay. So before we close out, let's talk about some apps. I know, Rex, you talked about Ally, I think. Are you familiar with any of these? Mint, Good Budget. Yeah. Mint. I hear Mint's popular, but I haven't used it.
Yeah, Mint's popular.
Okay.
You need another budget. YNAB, every dollar. Yeah, I'm familiar with most of those.
Honeydew's my favorite name, by the way, because it's Honey DUE. Honeydew. Yeah.
I'm not sure there's a good way to spend honeydew, right? One way means chores and one way means it's due. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
I
sure
don't,
there's a
yeah.
good way for that
What
one.
about the fruit? I love a good honeydew.
Well, it's not
Oh my
spelled
gosh, that's
that way
the worst
though.
fruit ever.
Yeah. So do you recommend these to clients? Do you just say whatever works is for you? Because, Dan said, like, use pen and paper or Excel or whatever you got. Whatever method works the best is what you should use, essentially.
I try something till it works.
Okay.
Everybody is different. And, I think pen and paper is great. I use a spreadsheet still, right? Which is still fairly old school.
I use
school.
notes. I actually use Apple's notes. Yeah.
So I think the key is find something that works for you and be consistent with it.
Okay.
Is the trick. I think all the apps have different nuances. Some things you'll like, some things you won't want because of your own personality. I wouldn't spend a ton of money on things like that, right? I think that, my personal opinion is, don't waste money on things like that when you can do it for free. But if it's gonna cost you a little bit and you'll stick to it, then it's probably the best money that you'll ever spend.
I have a good question for you. Rex. By the way, those watching live, if you have budget apps you use, or budgets or budget questions, let us know in the comments. Are you guys like personal trainers? Like do you call people like, hey, are you sticking to your? You call them every day, like, are you sticking to your budget? How are you going to reach your goals? Are you like motivational trainers? Like, how much of that is your job versus just like managing money?
Dan, are you a motivational trainer? I'm not a motivational
He's at zero. Oh my gosh. Oh, I think you guys need to move more that direction. It's way more fun. Yeah.
I hate to be obvious, but no, I don't call my clients every day, and I've never talked to them about how much you spent today.
Yeah, no, not that way. Yeah, but as far as being like motivational, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you stay on track. You're going to retire by this date at this time. You're going to have this much money.
We do have those conversations. Every time you have a financial planning appointment or a meeting, you always have those conversations.
Yeah, because that's got to be fun.
They want to know where they're at and if they're on track. That's very important.
Okay.
Yeah, we can be cheerleaders when we need to be, right? And cheer them on and say great job. And we do that, through the planning process where we're checking to see if they're on track year after year, making sure that we're saving the right places, making sure we're using their money efficiently. And it's easier if we're consistent on the planning. It's easier to spot hiccups quicker, right? And get back on track. And so if all of a sudden they're getting off on a tangent and we're starting to see them head off in a direction that could lead to financial issues down the road, then we can kind of get that discussed very quickly as we go through our planning process.
Rex, I just want to see you break it down and just get like dirty on them, like, what are you doing? Why'd you spend so much money on a car last month?
Pick up that quarter.
Yeah.
Get it out of the couch.
You should be putting that in savings and investing. And okay. I just think you should be a little more.
Why do you do it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see it now, Brandon.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, you should move that direction. All right. Well, if you have any questions or you want to stick to your budget, you need some motivational help, which I think Rex is very happy to help with. Planwithbaxter.com. And so how many times do they call you, Rex, and say, you know what, I just need you to be my motivation, right? I'm having a hard time saving for retirement. Help me, Rex.
We get a few
on
occasions. There's certain personality types that really needs that positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And really needs to hear that they're doing a good thing, they're on the right track. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with positive reinforcement. Some people respond better to that than negative reinforcement. Other people respond better to negative reinforcement. So it just kind of depends on what they need.
Suck at saving money. Yeah. Jeez, that'd be tough.
That usually looks like a quarterly planning meeting.
Okay.
Where we'll get together, we'll say, all right, here's where we're at today. We want to be in 3 months. We want to have this much debt paid down. We want to have this much going towards savings. And then we get together 3 months later and check. But
if you do a quarterly planning meeting, then that's sticking to a budget, because they got to meet with you every 3 months to figure out, all right, We on track?
Provides that accountability. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people need that accountability partner, right?
Good stuff. Again, planwithbaxter.com. Anything else on budgets? You guys have any other advice?
Stick to it. Just do it.
To it. Oh my gosh. Just do it.
Just
It's like the worst advice ever. All right. That has been Through the Pines, reminding you to use yesterday's dollars to finance tomorrow's dreams.